very good morning, everyone, and thanks for your kind words of introduction. And I would first like to thank Manorachna Dental College as well as the Sarum Dental College for this wonderful initiative on the overview of thesis processing for the postgraduates. And I would also like to personally thank Dr. Mahalakshmi because she's given me one of my favorite topics to talk here is the research misconduct. The success of research is just not getting good results, but it is also successful only when we have a good dissemination of knowledge. Yeah. So initial days, it was sheer pleasure to publish and it was a great addiction to publish. What happened later was there was a healthy competition that developed later, which actually led to a publish or perish concept. But of late, the universities are actually measuring the promotion in career or progress in career with the publication as the yardstick, and they also give a lot of monetary benefit, and it also helps in the measurement of the NERF and MAC rankings. Therefore, currently there is a lot of pressure on the authors to publish more. So, what has exactly happened is in the last 2 decades, particularly in the last 1 decade, there has been a lot of churning of academic articles that has been published. For example, if you see in the last 5 years, the growth is up to 22.78%. And if you see, India is in the top three countries which is churning out a lot of academic articles. However, as I said, there is an increase in the publications, and obviously no research can be perfect, there could be flaws. Therefore, there are a number of flawed publications is also increasing when it is getting published, as well as there is a boom in the technology. Therefore, the access of internet to the readers, as well as the tools that can detect all these misconduct, and there is definitely an increase in the number of whistleblowers. So this is overall increase to the prevalence of misconduct that is getting noticed nowadays more. Therefore, it becomes mandatory for us to know what is exactly a research misconduct and how to avoid it, and it becomes the need of the hour. So this graph typically explains that there is a massive output of articles. There is more than tenfold increase of articles in the last 3 decades. However, you also see that the papers that are getting retracted due to fraud or misconduct is also getting increased over a period of time. The previous graph was basically from medical literature. However, when we have analysis of dental publication retraction, for postgraduates who are not aware what is a retraction is, it is basically withdrawing of your manuscript from the index sources like PubMed and other sources, and also from the website because of some serious allegation is there on your publication, and there will be an inquiry committee, and it actually black marks on your professional career. So when it comes to dental publication, it is shown that there are nearly 138 articles that have been retracted, and predominantly the increase in retraction is increased after the year 2012. And Asia is the continent which is predominantly contributing to this retraction. And the most common reason that is cited for retraction is misconduct. However, there's another survey which is showing India literally churns out nearly 30% of the articles that are getting retracted. And the most common field that is getting involved is conservative dentistry and endodontics. So, as I said before, high time we have to know what is research misconduct and how to avoid it. It could be an unintentional error from our side, but the consequences are, however, going to be the same. However, I'm not going, since this is not a part of theory, I'm not going to give you definitions and references. It's going to be a very light presentation. So, going on to what is research misconduct, we basically call this as the FFP, that is fabrication of data, falsification of data, and plagiarism. However, there are other issues like authorship issues, where who can be an author is a very debatable and controversial topic, and conflicts of interest, how to declare them, and copyright infringements. These are three topics that also can cause dire repercussions when you when you involve in all these things, but they do not come under research misconduct. So this is not under the scope of this particular lecture. So going on to the fabrication of data, basically this is nothing but you create your own data. That is, you may not even do the experiment or record them, but you just report that you have got the data. Let us go with a hypothetical example of file A versus file B. And any guides who are present in this presentation to take a word of caution and please, because if your student is smart and if they do a thorough literature search and they know what is the number of cycles of failure for file A and they want to prove the file B as better, they can create the whole data by themselves. They don't even have to do the experiments. So it is our duty to be very cautious of what the data they give it to us. And however, there's something called as a data duplication. That is, they may do a part of the study as a pilot study with three sizes or five sample size or something like that. But however, small sample sizes are not allowed. They can just duplicate the data or triplicate the data without altering the mean and standard deviation much. And they can still prove 5B is better than 5A. The postgraduates to take a note of this is that this is just not allowed in research, and it is very easy to detect such methodological flaws very easily by the reviewer and the seasoned researcher. For example, if you're doing 5 cases and you're going to present it as a clinical study of 20 to 25 cases, expanding your data from 5 cases to 20 cases is just not allowed. It's a serious case of misconduct. Similarly, going on to falsification of data. What is this falsification? The first thing is tampering of an equipment. For example, you may have an EPG or a pulse oximeter where you want to slightly tamper it to give favorable results, or a pH meter, tamper the equipment to give favorable results for your good positive group. That is totally not allowed. Again, if you have both positive and negative results in your study, and you're only publishing your favorable results or positive results, even that is called falsification of data. The most important thing here is removing outliers as part of the data. For example, I'm using the same example what I used in the previous slide. Checking the cyclic fatigue of file A and file B, it is totally a hypothetical situation here. So if you see the mean difference between file A and file B, though there was a difference of 83 here, the standard deviation is very high. Therefore, they put on doing the statistics, you may not get a difference between file A and file B. However, why is this difference? Because there are two values which are very, very low compared to the rest. So this comes under the outlier part. So by just deleting those two values, you can actually get a work on the mean and standard deviation, which will give you a favorable data. So this cannot be done. Do not remove data as per as you wish. You cannot remove 5 data out of 10 and give me a favorable result saying, yeah, this group is better than that. These are all falsification of data. And the most important thing is tampering of images. Even seasoned researchers do this mistake because they actually don't know whether what they're doing is right or wrong. There is a forum called as Office of Research Integrity by the US, where they have given us a couple of guidelines of what can be done with the images, what is allowed and what is not allowed. So I've just given it as a mnemonic on ABCDE for ease of remembrance for the postgraduates. The first thing is do not tamper with your actual original image. You want to enhance the brightness or contrast, so make a copy, duplicate it, and then work on it. Similarly, when you change magnification or reduction, do not make much changes with the pixel that the inference does not get changed. Similarly, when you're going to crop an image, it should be done to an extent where the inference is not getting tampered. If you're going to crop an IOPA, make sure there is enough and more amount of periapical area left. You cannot crop the periapical lesion in an IOPA and say, yes, no, it is healing. So all these things can change the inference for the reader. Thus, we have to be very careful when you're cropping images. And cloning of images is a big no. You cannot club, for example, an SCM picture of coronal, middle, and apical together and give as one part of the image. So cloning of images is just not allowed. And when you're going to compare pre and post digital images like an IOP, then you have to have similar exposure conditions, and this has to be mentioned in the manuscript. Again, enhancing the brightness and contrast of an image to an extent is allowed, and I will show you that with an example. For biological samples, avoid filters, and when you're going to magnify, make sure the resolution of the images are okay and does not tamper with your results. Again, when you're going to calibrate something like using a Hounsfield units for a spiral CT measurement, in those cases, we have to make sure that you calibrate the Hounsfield units correctly to the standard and the raw data, and this also has to be mentioned in the manuscript. Again, irreversible. This is called as the lossy compression of image. This is not allowed in image manipulation. And part-time or a part manipulation of the image to give favorable results is totally not acceptable. So as a rule of thumb, we have to understand that images are just not a part of any part of our manuscript. It is a very important source of data in your research, and we should not try to tamper them. This also comes under falsification of the data. ORI has clearly said that the research misconduct that has been recorded up to 67% of this misconduct is because of image changing. For example, if you say take this original image that is shown over here, you can slightly enhance the image for clarity so that all the cells and all the data is still represented. However, when you overdo it, you may lose some amount of data, and this the background cells are removed so that inference can change. So this is not allowed. Similarly, when you're going to copy and paste, if you're going to combine two images, it is good allowed, but you have to mention what are the images it is combined and up to what place. You have to delineate where the images are combined. Just without doing it and making it as one cloned image will actually change your inference to the reader. So this cannot be done and it will come under falsification of image. Again, we are going to crop out or magnify a part of the image. For example, in your histopathological slides or your SEM slide, where you want to show one part to explain. That means you have to show what is the amount of magnification that's happening, which part is getting magnified, and it should come out as a extra image, and you are not supposed to remove the background. Just providing the magnified image will be considered as falsified data. So these are some published data again given by ORA, which they've proven that it has had some kind of falsification. So in this, if you see, this is the CLSM where they have control and the group. They are just the same images where they have magnified and tampered, creating a tail-like structure so that you get a positive result. Again, this is a immunohistochemistry part of another study where if you see multiple groups are involved, M1 and M4 are nothing but to flip the images of the same and they've used the same data. Again, this is another protein structure of a cell where when they have checked it mechanically, they have found that it is being cut and cropped, superimposed structures, and then they have got these images and they have manipulated with this image. Again, when you do the genetic study, it is very easy to create the bands in your genetic study, or you can even remove it, or you can insert the image in your Photoshop. Again, when you do a histopathology slides or a ground sections for enamel and dentin, things like that, selective enhancements as shown in this manipulated image can be actually done in Photoshop. We can even fill the periapical lesion with the bone healing with from Photoshop, and all those things can be easily done, but these things are all serious offense. These are all serious misconduct and it's considered as fraud. And these things are intentionally done, and we cannot accept any of these things. And please bear in mind that there are softwares to pick this up very, very easily, which can show that these images are tampered. So we cannot just get away with doing all those things. We may be thinking, really, are people doing all these things? There was an interesting survey, interesting systematic review where they have accumulated a lot of surveys on whether people really falsify and fabricate data. Yes, it was found that a lot of people, psychologists, scientists, statisticians, researchers, everybody are involved in this. So unfortunately, a study has shown that around 163 statisticians, 51% accepted that yes, they are falsifying data, and 13% said they were being forced by the researchers to give that value. And even in India in 2015, nearly 56% of the 155 researchers that we had contacted accepted for falsification and undergoing plagiarism. So high time we take a note on all these things and correct and amend our mistakes and be careful on what we are publishing. So there are actually forums both from the US and the UK who want to know what is all these things in detail and to know how to correct our mistakes. Whether if you have a doubt on whether what you're doing comes under scientific misconduct, you can go visit the website like Office of Research Integrity or Committee of Publication Ethics, which gives you multiple modules, videos, case summaries of how to handle things. Even if you mail them, they help you really well to understand what exactly is your problem. So there is one example, when you falsify and you get caught, I'm trying to explain one case summary under falsification. This particular author has come under the radar of research misconduct because he's also got a couple of grants and funding for this project. And he's undergone an inquiry committee, and they give you a detailed report on how much percentage was done, what was done. Here they have shown that 51 figures has been tampered with, and most of the study, like methods, data, conclusion, everything has been falsified. Unfortunately, he's published many papers, he's presented it in multiple forums, and grant applications has also been done with this particular paper. So they clearly also give you what is the specific falsified data that you're giving. Will be a detailed note. Mind you, this is an open access website. If your name gets there, your career is done. So you can even lose your job, and there will be a big inquiry committee that they can track your articles. So here they also tell you what was the respondent going to undergo because of this falsification. They can get debarred, they can have an exclusion period from doing research for application of funding, and also if they are in big advisory consultancy capacity, all these things will be removed. The article can be retracted. However, there will be a mail from the publisher and the editor to the particular university. There will be a committee. You may even lose the job. So it is better to prevent rather than facing the dire consequences, not to involve in such misconduct. So at this point, what are we supposed to do and not to do? Just simply only one simple rule of thumb: do not lie in your research. If you do that, I think you're safe. And also know that there is nothing like unintentional and intentional, and the most important thing is research integrity, or doing things with ethics is just a self-discipline. We cannot teach you to be having some kind of integrity. It should come from within. Going on to the next part, that is one of the most common thing that's happening here is plagiarism. When we were PGs, we were not very familiar with this kind of things. But however, nowadays, even my 10-year-old son in school, when they write an essay, they talk about plagiarism. He's very careful of not taking things from the internet and writing it. So this is actually called as the literary theft, or it actually calls as taking up other people's ideas, words, and images, and does not give them appropriate credit. That is basically called as plagiarism. And again, it is also has dire consequences when it comes to when you get caught. So there are certain ways to avoid it. It could be an unintentional method of plagiarism, but still the consequences are the same. Various classifications are there. I'm not going into what are the types of classification of plagiarism, those theory part, but I would like to mention two things. One is textual plagiarism. It is also called as textual similarity. So that can come when you copy paste it completely, Control C, Control V. That is called as verbatim copy. Sometimes you may try to mix and match and write. So that is also not allowed. I'll show you with some examples of how to write it. So other thing is wrong citations. You may give a wrong citation, you may give an improper citation, a old citation, something called a secondary citation. All these things come under the conceptual plagiarism. That is, you're not giving the credibility to the particular author who actually deserves it. So we have to be very careful with this regard. And the most important thing here is self-plagiarism. That is, it is actually an oxymoron. That is, you're trying to steal your own concept from yourself. So in this thing, there are various types of self-plagiarism like salami slicing, duplicate publication, text recycling, and augmented publication. Here, duplicate publication is taken into very serious consideration because you're trying to send the same manuscript to multiple journals at the same time. Unfortunately, it gets published in two different places in the same time. It can have a serious offense. But however, I will only explain salami slicing here because it may not be considered though as a research misconduct. I think it would be helpful for the postgraduate if they know what exactly that is. Salami slicing is nothing but data fragmentation. For example, you do one study with the same hypothesis, same population, or same samples. You create some kinds of data, but you don't publish a single. You try to publish it in bits and parts. So that is mostly considered as salami slicing. For example, here I have used the example of taking 50 patients on resorption, and I'm working on the patients, the data I have collected, and I'm trying to publish a treatment prognosis in 1 year or 2 years. In this condition, if I publish one paper as treatment prognosis, and another paper as confounders, the factors affecting the prognosis, another paper of role of CBCT in identifying ECR, then it becomes like you're trying to fragment the data into multiple papers. So this actually is not, as I said, is not research misconduct, but you must be very careful of determining whether it is coming under self-plagiarism. So why is this plagiarism so rampant? Because as of now, as I said, nowadays actually the kids have a better knowledge on plagiarism, but however, still this copy paste culture because of LD, seminar, JD, we just copy from the internet, paste it, and submit it. That has to be overcome. There has, because of lack of time, a lot of NOPGs are overwhelming cases. They have conferences, studies, and there's a pressure on publication. They do have a lack of time and a lot of pressure on them. Does it mean that we have to resort to copy paste culture? Again, we may not know exactly how to write the article. So that is an art. Writing is a scientific writing is an art. When you start working on it, you will know how to better it. And again, English not being one of our native language, again, we may face some issues in writing the paper. So I'll just give you a few examples. So let's see, this first paper is on root canal anatomy in one particular journal. I'm not taking the name of the journals here. The second is also on root canal anatomy in another journal. So when you see comparing these two papers, the exact dissimilarity between these two is only one word. That is typically, except that it's a complete verbatim copy of the whole paragraph. So technically, this is also not allowed. And let's see this. This I have made a couple of paragraphs mix and match, and I ran it for a test for this presentation in Authenticate. Authenticate is a paid plagiarism software tool, which is very good actually. We can run your software if through your university. You can have your Authenticate or turn it into software. You can see a number there is 74% that shows the textual similarity. That means 74% of time the text in this is having similarity to previously published articles. You can see where are the articles taken from. This color coded in the left indicates where the article is taken from. 31% of the content is taken from this particular article. And here, if you see, it's not exactly completely taken from one article. It's been mixed. One sentence is from one article, the second is from article number 4. So even this is not allowed. This is called as copy to text verbatim from multiple sources. It's called mosaic plagiarism or patch writing, which is just not allowed. So here we have to know that there is nothing called as intentional or unintentional plagiarism. Both have the direct consequences of getting it retracted, facing an inquiry committee, and all those things. So better is to avoid them. So how are we going to avoid it? So you just have to improve your writing skills. I'm just going to give you a couple of tips here. So let's take an example of one old article where there are multiple laws. So basically, laws you write it in the same manner. So you just physics law, you just put it. You have to have a definition kind of thing. So here we have a law of symmetry of locating extra canals. So I'm writing a paper on locating extra canals. I want to use this particular law. If I'm using the same verbatim article words, and I am also quoting the author name there in reference, this does not suffice. This is wrong. And we have to make sure that whatever words are taken exactly should come within quotes and along with the reference also. Just because you put a quotes doesn't mean that you don't have to give a reference. Your quotes has to come. Few journals will say you have to do it as a block indentation. That means you bring the verbatim words one level lower and indent the whole sentence. So that is called as block indentation. So that's how you do verbatim copying. So in that case, it's not very common in medical literature or dental literature. What the type of writing we do is called paraphrasing or summarizing. Paraphrasing is writing the whole content in your own words, but the length of the content is the same. In summarizing, we just, if it's one whole paragraph, we read it and we just write it in one or two sentences. So that is called as summarizing. Let's see an example. So I've taken one particular paragraph from the same article. I have tried to reword it myself. So if you see, certain important facts like consistent anatomic landmark is used the same. And I have changed regardless of irrespective. Again, using the same words from the original article into my article. However, I have rephrased a couple of words here and there. Is this allowed is the most important question. No, this is not allowed because this is a very inappropriate way of writing the manuscript. So how do we write it? Read it completely. For example, you have to rephrase it in your own words completely. However, you're going to use certain important facts like these three sentences, I have reworded it, but I have used the fact like most consistent landmark from their article. And therefore, I have to put it within quotes. And again, if you see the word North Star, the original article themselves are quoted within quotes. So that means it is not their term. So it is a specific term. So we have to also quote it with quotes, and you have to give the reference even when you paraphrase it. So we have to do a right method of paraphrase. And going on to summarizing the whole paragraph, I can read it and I just write it in my own words in just one line or 1.5 line, 2 lines maximum. So that is called summarizing. I don't write anything from there. I don't use specific parts, anything from the article, but I still give the gist of the result. So this is called summarizing. And however, if you notice, I still give the reference in the summarizing part. So going on, this is all with regards to the writing aspect. So that is the textual similarity part. Going on to your citation mistake, one of the common things we do is If you see this particular, this is all one of my own PG's article that we corrected. So just note the reference number 11, which is quoting on various obturation techniques in pearl root canal, and also note the reference 21 and 22. So when you see the reference number 11, it is just referring only to the measurement of canal angulation and nothing to do with the obturation. So that is the improper citation there. And similarly, 21 and 22, these two authors are not even mentioned in the list. So again, what is happening is this does not correlate to the particular references they are citing. So there is a wrong credit given to the author there. These are called as improper citations, and we cannot make such mistakes here. And one more example is called as a secondary citation, which is a very rampant behavior that we see, which is often missed in most of the publications. For example, see the second line where they actually claim is avulsion is a type of injury due to neurovascular injury, and there is loss of pulp vitality. This is the content of this sentence, and the reference is given by Martin and his team. So actually, when you have to cite something, you have to take that article and see whether exactly Martin is given that sentence. So when we go back and see, I mean, I went and saw Martin's article. It was surprising to see that he exactly has not given that particular fact. In fact, he is taken it from one more article from 2002 in the Traumatology. So what happens is this becomes a cross-reference of a secondary source, and however, this is the primary source as of now. So just because I saw a cross-reference in Martin's article, I cannot quote that. So I have to go back to this 2002 article, take the full text article and check. However, we found out that even this article is not the original source. So we traced it back that the original article was given by Andreasen in 1995. So what exactly is happening is somebody has quoted Martin in the wrong place. The credit that has to be gone for Andreasen is gone for Martin. This may sound simple, but this is a serious misconduct where you give wrong secondary citations. So how do we overcome this? Basically, if you are having references, always take the full text, go through it, and then accept it and put it in your reference sections. By mistake, it's very old or you're not able to source it out. Then, in very rare conditions, you have to cite the secondary source in reference, but you have to mention that original work in the text. For example, this is how we have to write, like as cited by Andreas in 1995, but the reference is your secondary source. I hope I'm clear in this particular part of giving secondary citation, because secondary citation can also lead to retraction. If people really want to pull you down, then they can pull you down with such things. The next important, I'm not going in depth because I've been talking about citations so much. You should know where to give the reference. You should really have the right knowledge and cite to give the citation. So you have to know why you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, what is to be cited, and how to cite. However, I'm not going. This is a lecture by itself as a separate topic. I'm going into that, but I'm just summarizing that part as common knowledge. For example, like hypochlorite removes pulp tissue. It's a common knowledge. You don't have to give a citation there. But however, you have to know your audience. If you're sending it to medical people, or if you're sending it to an orthodontist, or if you're sending it to who is your audience, they may not know hypochlorite is pulp resolution capacity. So you have to know your audience and how common the knowledge is for the audience. Based on that, you have to give a reference. Most importantly, if the fact or result is not from your own study, in that case, you have to give a reference. If the image is not from your own study, in that case, you have to give a reference. Most importantly, if you're in doubt whether the reference has to be given or not, in that case, go ahead and give a citation there. So, how to avoid your citation mistakes? I have given again a mnemonic of responsible. So you will know where to give your references. That is, do not give references of retracted articles. That will be marked in PubMed with clear red font that this article is retracted. So do not give references of those articles. Excessive self-citation, avoid doing it. Even summarizing and paraphrasing, you have to give referencing. And very old references, avoid. Make sure that it is available in the literature somewhere else also. And always follow the author instructions and follow them properly. And secondary citations to be avoided, improper citations to be avoided, And citations favoring, that is when you write your discussions, you have to have both contradictory and favoring results to be shown. You cannot show part different, that is only the results only that is favoring you. And most important, I would request all the postgraduates, whenever you start a manuscript, LD, thesis, seminar, whatever it is, the day you open your word and start writing, start with your referencing simultaneously. Use reference management systems like Zotero, Mendeley, InNote. So many things are available, so that you will always have a very clear referencing style. You won't make mistakes, and you will avoid all these improper citations if you use a reference management. So when I'm talking so much about plagiarism, I just thought I should talk a little bit on plagiarism software. So you have two things. One is free and paid software. I'm not going in depth into plagiarism software. Obviously, when it's a paid software, it is obviously having a lot of advantages over a free software. I have used a couple of free softwares, and I've found plagiarismsoftware.org is a little better than the other softwares. And you also have Utkunj. I think nowadays Utkunj is not functioning. When I checked last week, I was not able to process Utkunj, which is a UGC-based software which is given to all the universities. However, the last couple of weeks, we were not able to process Utkunj. Before that, we were using Utkunj for all our postgraduate dissertation and things. And the free software has its own limitations. You have to do a manual search. The hits may not be perfect. You may not get a percentage of textual similarity and again all those things. But with your page software, you have a lot of access to a lot of databases. It's very easy to use. It gives you where your content is plagiarized or similarity is there. So you will be able to correct it, run it again, and get it done. So best thing is university can procure as an annual subscription for one of these software like Identicate or Turnitin, any one of these things, and they can give it to postgraduates so that it's easy for them to know how to use the software. So I would like to conclude with one of the most current concept on ChatGPT, because this is being used even by undergraduates for all their conferences writing abstract. Whether ChatGPT in scientific writing is allowed or not. So as such, when you see your PubMed, when you just put ChatGPT and misconduct or ChatGPT in scientific writing, there is numerous articles that is popping out in various medical literature. So it is being continuously used and researched in the field of scientific writing. But though despite there are lots and lots of advantages of ChatGPT, however, there are lots of disadvantages and limitations in ChatGPT because it is in a very infancy state. All these are conversational artificial intelligence have their inherent disadvantages as of now. Yes, probably in the future, but currently there's something called as artificial intelligence hallucination. That is, it gives you the results, what is already published, and it also gives you right upon a probable outcome of the topic. That is, this may or may not be there in the literature in some other language, which is very difficult to cross-verify. References are not always available in all these websites. So AI hallucination is actually there, and there is, since it's been written by a computer, the copyright infringements issues are there. Whether to give an authorship to ChatGPT is another debatable option here. And as of now, they have verified that the originality of the text generated with this artificial intelligence is very high. There is 99% and no plagiarism, but still there are no guidelines and to check on all these things. And most importantly, the 3.5 version has a very restricted source only till 21. So as I said, if all these AI-based conversational apps are still in the infancy stage. Yes, it may be the future. We have to wait and watch what holds for us in this particular aspect of these things in scientific writing. As of now, a lot of editors have clearly said don't use all these things in scientific writing. Use your own human form of writing. And they have said no to ChatGPT. Few editors have said, yes, you can use it, but please mention in your disclaimer that you have used artificial intelligence source for writing your paper. But a lot of people do not want to give authorship for these kind of papers for the ChatGPT part. So there's a lot of confusion still existing in there. We'll have to wait and watch what is going to happen. As ending, I like to reiterate that yes, there is a lot of misconduct that is happening. Only very few are getting caught actually. Not everything is getting caught. So in that, when you see the maximum number of problems with redundant publication, yes, data manipulation is happening, plagiarism is happening, unfortunately, India lot of other pressures that we have academically. Just because we have pressures doesn't mean that we cannot up our standards. So basically, most of us do it unintentionally. So just one rule of thumb I would like to say is never lie in your research, and integrity is the need of the hour. So you have to know what is right, what is wrong, and also have ethics when you do your research. Set your standards way above. Make sure that you don't do any lie or any falsification of your data, and also learn how to write your papers and make sure there are appropriate citations and take onus of your own publication. If there is an issue, yes, take onus of it, take responsibility, be a responsible researcher, and also make sure you use the technology currently available so that you can avoid a lot of issues. And I wish all of you a very happy researching and publishing saga. And thank you.